Alec Baldwin's criminal trial is underway now in New Mexico, with opening statements wrapping up just a short time ago. You're looking live at the courtroom right now. Baldwin is charged with involuntary manslaughter for the deadly shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of Rust. Prosecutors opened their case by accusing Baldwin of, quote, reckless disregard for safety.
When someone plays make-believe with a real gun in a real-life workplace, and while playing make-believe with that gun violates the cardinal rules of firearm safety, people's lives are endangered, and someone could be killed. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what this case is about.
Let's get the latest from CNN correspondent Elizabeth Wagmeister. We also have with us CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Elizabeth, first to you, bring us up to speed on what we've seen unfold in the courtroom so far.
What we are seeing unfold is really a tale of two different stories. As we just saw from the prosecution, they are saying that Alec Baldwin acted recklessly. He knew that the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, was inexperienced and that he should have been responsible for checking this gun. They said, as we saw in that clip that you played, they said that even though this is a movie set, this isn't make-believe, it's real life. Then if we go to the defense in their opening statement, they are saying that this is a movie set and our client Alec Baldwin is an actor. It's not his job to check the gun. We have a clip. Let's take a look at what one of his lawyers had to say.
The actor's job is to act, to rehearse, to choreograph his moves, to memorize his lines. In the incident in question, he's pulling a six-shooter to try to defend himself. That's why the gun has to be safe before it gets into the actor's hands. His mind is somewhere else, in the being of another, a century away, an outlaw. He must be able to take that weapon and use it as the person he's acting would.
His attorney went on to say that on a movie set, while everyone does act in harmony, that each person has their own individual responsibility, and that checking the gun would have been the responsibility of the armorer and also of the assistant director. Now, you'll remember that earlier this week in a pretrial hearing, there was a big legal victory for Baldwin in that the judge ruled that his role as a producer cannot come up. Now, why this is significant is because the prosecution was intending to say that as the producer, Baldwin did bear more responsibility for safety on that set. What we're seeing today is that direct result of that legal victory, which is that Baldwin's defense is really relying on the fact that he is an actor, and that's what they're drilling into.
All right, Elizabeth Wagmeister, thank you so much for that reporting. With that in mind, let's turn now to Joey Jackson. And Joey, let's talk about the fact that these charges against Baldwin were initially dropped, and yet now we're looking at live pictures inside a courtroom. So what changed?
Yeah, a lot changed. The reality is, good to be with you, Jessica and Boris, is that the prosecution had the ability, even though the case was dismissed, because there was no final adjudication. This is not double jeopardy. Whenever a case is otherwise dismissed in any way without the merits, you don't get to the question of double jeopardy. And so to the extent that there was evidence which would suggest there was initial issue as to whether the gun was operable, whether the gun was altered, whether the gun had any issues, such as to make Alec Baldwin not culpable. However, it was tested and it was determined that at the time that it was used, that it was perfect, it was in perfect condition. As a result of that, they decided, Jessica, to move forward. Remember, this is not a murder trial. The issue is not whether he had the intent to kill anyone. The issue was whether he was careless, whether he was irresponsible, and as a result of that irresponsibility, whether it led to the death. The issues that Elizabeth brought up, the excellent point that she makes with respect to the battle of the narratives, is very much at play. The prosecution trying to say this is a workplace, and in a workplace you have to be responsible, and there are cardinal rules. The defense arguing what cardinal rules? He's acting, and he has every right to rely upon the work of others who handed him a cold gun. Last point with respect to this question, and that is the fact that they cannot introduce his role as a producer, Jessica, into the equation goes to a lot. That the defense, it inures to their benefit greatly, because now you take out the issue of a producer's ability to establish a safe environment. What should he have done? What protocols followed? What was the workplace like? What should the workplace have been like? It all comes down to whether he acted responsibly as an actor, and that's the question that has to be deciphered by this jury.
Joey, something in the opening statements on the defense side struck me, and that was their argument that in his mind, he's an outlaw 100 years ago. This sort of method acting argument that we're hearing, that he's in a different mindset where his focus is on the scene itself and not necessarily on the function of what he has in his hand. How effective is that as an argument?
So, Boris, that's important because it goes to the fact that you're acting, and it distinguishes the issues the prosecution was raising in terms of the cardinal rules of a workplace. This is not a normal workplace, and you have to, I think, judge someone's conduct consistent with context, consistent with their environment, consistent with their role, consistent with their responsibilities. And what the defense is arguing, Boris, that he had every right, being an actor of an actor of this era, right, mirroring or acting from someone from another era, to reasonably rely upon the gun safety measures of others. And if someone hands you a gun and says, "Cold gun," right, why would you have any reason to believe that it was otherwise loaded, that it was otherwise operable, that it was otherwise capable of taking a life? So I think it's going to be critical as the jury evaluates this to determine whether he was responsible. And also, the points to be made, he said repeatedly, that is Alec Baldwin, who is of course accused, that he never put his hand on the trigger, his finger on the trigger. I think to the defense argument, if you buy it, it wouldn't matter, because whether he put his finger on the trigger or not, he had the ability to believe and to know as an actor from another generation that he was simply acting, the gun was cold, and that no projectile would come out of it, much less hit someone, much less kill them. Those are going to be the issues for the jury's determination.
Yeah, Joey Jackson, always fascinating to get your perspective. Thanks for being with us.